Hello, I'm John BenderWaffles Aljits, and this is the third episode of my RPG Maker tutorial series. In today's episode, we are finally going to start covering something within the RPG Maker software itself, namely designing the world map. However, as with my previous video, concepts I discuss here will be applicable to other types of projects, not just RPGs. Now you might be wondering why we're going into map creation before we create our characters. Well, the answer is very simple. We are designing the world first so that we can get a better grasp of the space that our characters occupy. This allows us to create characters based upon what sort of environments they come from. With all that said, let's dive right into RPG Maker and get to work on our overworld. Okay, well here we are in front of my computer now, and let's just go ahead and do the very first thing that you should do when you load up RPG Maker VX Ace and you want to start a new project, and that we're going to go to File, New Project, which brings up this dialog which we saw in the program overview, and we're just going to name our project. Let's call it Tutorial Game, and the folder Tutorial Game. Now note that you can call it whatever you want, so you could come up with a cool title or whatever, or just follow along, do exactly what I do. Click OK, and you get your default first map, and everything is loaded up as it is in the default. Come down here to your map bank, find map 001, and right click on it, bring up map properties. That brings up this window, which is the basic information for your map. You have your general settings up here, which is what we're going to be working with today. We aren't going to mess with parallax backgrounds, notes, encounters, or anything like that. So let's change the name of this map to World Map. And let's do the same thing for the display name. And when we come down here to tile set, the default is fine, which is the field. We don't need to worry about scrolling. We don't need to worry about sound at all. For width and height, let's do something like 50 by 50. It's a nice square map, very basic. So go ahead and click OK, and you'll notice that it gave us a whole bunch of extra area that's filled with these dark blue dots. When you have that, that means that it's either transparency or that there's nothing there. So in our case, there's nothing there. Let's go ahead and, you know what, let's take this darker water, or you know what, let's just do the basic water. We're trying to make this simple for you guys to follow along. So take the basic water, take your paintbrush, or your paint bucket rather, and fill it up. And let's zoom out using the zoom buttons up here to have. And now we get a good look at our whole work area. Let's switch this back over to pencil. And let's go over here to our tile set, and let's find the grass right there. Let's pick it. Now, let's try to think about this realistically as far as how actual world structures function. When you look at like how tectonic plates and things work, what you'll see is that land masses almost look like they can fit together. Like look at like South America and Africa, and it looks like that they are one piece that's split apart. So we should try to do that with our continents. Going off of what we set up in the game design document, you will see that we need at least 2 major land masses for this. We have the one where the player starts, and then the sort of desert volcanic area. So let's start off with the very basic one, and let's do it in the upper left up here. So let's do some sort of like, kind of like a kidney bean sort of shape. And sort of start bringing it up and sort of thicken it out as you get more towards the upper region. And there. Kind of looks like a T-bone steak a little bit. Now let's go ahead and fill it in. Now note that as we do this, you can have yours shaped and oriented completely differently. In fact, I encourage you to. Feel free to do these world maps differently than the way that I'm doing them, and please send me a picture of it on Twitter. I'm at BenderWaffles. I'd love to see what you guys are working on. Now let's do the second continent, and so let's try to kind of, oops. See, that, people, is why you make sure to switch to your pencil after you are done with the paint bucket. But we can hit this button here or Control Z to undo. And then let's just go ahead and let's start drawing, again, something that looks like it would almost fit together. You know what? I don't want that little nub in there. So there we go. Now let's fill that in and make sure to switch back to your other one. So now we have our two continents, but you'll notice that the second continent isn't really what we need it to be, because we need it to be both a desert region and sort of a volcanic region. So let's go ahead and let's take this sand tile and let's separate this continent out. So let's go about here because we want almost more region for sandy desert than we want volcanic. Let's take our paintbrush or paint bucket. I keep calling it paintbrush. It's a paint bucket. And let's fill that in. And now that we already have it separated out, we can just take this sort of volcanic rocky area and just fill it in. So now we have our regions. Now let's add some details like rivers. Rivers are something that exist in reality. So let's make them exist in our game. So let's kind of find, let's zoom in actually, and let's find spots where it looks like rivers might exist, and maybe add a body of water at the end so that it's like a lake. And then maybe there's a river that breaks off from that and goes that way, and maybe there's a river that breaks off from it and goes that way. Always making sure to leave some connection so that your landmass doesn't get broken up if you don't want it to. And let's do something down here as well. And maybe this one does create an island. Just a small little island. And let's do that over here too, because even deserts will have rivers that run through them. And maybe there's an oasis of some kind. Yeah. Let's do something up here as well. And that'll be where the desert ruins are. In this mountainy region, maybe we don't want a lot of rivers, but we'll do just a little something to give the area a bit more character. There we go. So now if we zoom back out, this looks a little bit more like a actual world. Let's do that. Yeah. I really like that. That looks a lot better. That looks good. I like that. So let's just kind of define the shape of the continents a little bit. Get rid of some of these very straight blockiness sort of parts. And sort of plane it down and make it just make it, give it some more character. Give it a bit more realism to the shapes. Now, if we're talking realism, there's also another thing that you'll note. When you have poles, the two poles of the planet, those are usually the coldest parts. So let's go ahead and let's make this region up here kind of a snowy region. So let's just sort of, yet again, do a dividing line. This time we'll do it on the multiple places, and let's sort of just fill those in with snow. No, I like that little grassy patch there. In fact, let's do that. Oop. Let's do that. Yeah, I like that. Now, you kind of can decide if you want to do a snowy southern region. I might just take a second here to try it out and see if I like it. I feel like the southern pole will probably be not as snowy. Let's see that as a whole. Oops. You know what? With a little bit of tweaking, I think I like that. So let's do that tweaking. And there you go. You know, I honestly, I think I like that. So, giving us some character. So let's go ahead and let's talk about adding in the towns. So if you come down here to B, this other tab, it brings up all of your buildings, all of your big mountains, all of the fine details for creating your kind of world. So let's think about the places that we absolutely need in the game. We have the village where the player character starts out. We have the king's castle, a seaport town, a desert town, a desert ruins, and the volcanic lair of the main bad guy. Now we are going to add in a couple of extra dungeons on top of that, because if you notice, the sort of layout of the world almost lends itself to some extra bonus dungeons, like say one on this island here, or up here in this region, or over here. It kind of lends itself to extra content, which is a great thing about RPGs, is that in addition to your main storyline, you have all this extra stuff that you can go do. So we are actually going to allow for that. So, but first we're going to do the stuff that is absolutely necessary. So first things first is we have the town where the main character starts out. And let's sort of take this kind of town. Now, when you have a tile that is multiple, well, when you have a object that is multiple tiles long, you can click and drag and select multiple tiles to allow you to place, obviously, multiple tiles. Now, when we're thinking realistically about where towns and such are placed, we have to realize that usually they exist near rivers or near some sort of source of water. So let's place this one right there, right next to this river. And then let's take a castle and let's use, I think I'm kind of like, this is a difficult choice. I think I like this castle for the king. And let's put it, find a spot that makes sense. Let's put it right about there. We can assume that there's probably smaller streams and things that are going near the castle, so it can be a little bit away from a body of water and still exist realistically. So let's then do the seaport. Now, I almost want to see the seaport down here somewhere, because that looks like sort of a perfect little inlet to put a seaport town. And because it's not snowy down here, we're going to find a small town that looks like it would be, a fairly good sea town sort of look. So let's go with this, because I don't really want walls around my sea town. And let's put it, how does it look there? No, I don't really like it there. How about right there? I like that. I like that a lot better. And that gives us some area to explore. Now for Desert Town, we're going to go for this tile here, and we're going to put it on the edge of the oasis. So right about, honestly, I like it right there. So we're going to do that. So then the desert ruins, the sort of ruinous castle. We're going to choose this look. I like this castle because it sort of blends in with the palette of the desert, and it fits exactly what we want, which is sort of like a desert, sort of ruined, kind of beaten up, worn down sort of place. And you know what? I sort of like right there for its location. Okay, and then we have one last thing that absolutely needs to happen, which is the bad guys sort of lair. And what better place than an evil looking castle? We're going to put that right about there. So now we have the basic locations for our game planned out. Now let's go ahead and put in the sort of bonus areas, the sort of bonus dungeons as they were. So we have one up here. I want to do one kind of up in the snowy north. Let's put... You know what? I really like that look. That would look really cool nested in like some mountains or something. Oops. And down here, let's get like a forest tower. Like that. Right there. Yeah. I like that. So people, when they get the boat, they can come down here and they can land and they can go to that tower and you can fight like goblins and stuff like that. And then let's put a bonus dungeon down here in the desert somewhere. But where would make sense? And what sort of look do we want? Well, we've already got like a ruins. We've got like a forest tower and some sort of temple. So let's actually save that. And we're going to go for... I haven't really decided yet. We'll kind of figure that out as we get further on. Ooh, I kind of like this like sort of tower look. We can have it... We can give it sort of a 3D look by having it look over the ocean. It's a good look. We're going to go with that. That's going to be our bonus area that's going to be accessible via... You know what? Actually, let's move where that is. Let's move it down a little bit. Because then we can make it accessible. Or maybe up here. Because I almost just want to make it accessible only once you have the airship. So now that we have the basic locations, let's sort of flesh out our world by adding details. Now I'm going to show you guys how to add basic details up here in the snowy area of the north, the starting area, and then I'm going to just kind of do a quick pass through at super speed. But let's go through. Let's do mountains first because that's a little bit of a good way of defining what is passable and what's not. Because within RPG Maker, you can't pass over mountains, but you can pass over trees. So let's just keep that in mind as you're designing your areas as far as what is accessible and what is not. We're going to do like a forest down here. So, and let's nestle that among the mountains. Yeah. Okay, now let's kind of move on to trees. Over here we have a snowy tree. And just like the mountains, when you place it, it will sort of bundle up naturally and make for... Oops. It'll make everything look much more fleshed out. And now because this is sort of a region that is lived in, we're trying to make it seem like there's almost a natural highway. And in fact, we can place a path if we want to. Let's see how that looks. I'm not sure if I like that. But you know, let's try it out. No, I don't like it. So let's not do that. But let's leave it sort of open for people to pass through. And we can do some like snowy sort of mounds and things. Just bumps to kind of give it some character. Actually, over there, let's do sort of like that. Yeah, so you have to pass through a forest to get to that. Now, let's do... I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do at least the green area really fast. Maybe I'll come down here and talk to you about deserts and that sort of stuff, but I'm going to fill this out really quickly, and then I will get back to you. So there you go. I've done the sort of grassy area, and as you can tell, I've tried to keep it interesting looking while varying up sort of what's there, but while keeping it kind of focused and keeping it on track. Now, when we come down here to the desert, this is where you kind of wind up with sort of a couple of different schools of thought. By the way, I apologize for hitting the microphone a couple of times. We kind of come up with two schools of thought on how we want to do this. We could have, big patches of palm trees, but that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Or, you could just have varied, very sort of spaced out palm trees, and then maybe around the oasis have some sort of patches like that, which, I mean, realistically would make sense to a certain degree, and maybe you could even do small little spots like that. But really, for the most part, when it comes to a desert, you wind up with not a lot of foliage and a little bit more in the way of things such as kind of rocks and mountains and things of that nature. Which, speaking of mountains, we are going to talk for a second here about one aspect of map creation that is extremely important. And that concept is the idea of using... trying to think how to word this. It is disguising linearity as openness. What we are doing here is we are limiting the player's path. We are blocking off where he can go, because a player cannot walk through a mountain. So we're using those mountains to sort of create a natural barrier so that we can direct what the player can see when. So, like, for instance, this tower here, it doesn't exist for lower level players to get through. It exists for higher level players to be able to get through and experience some extra content that they might not be able to have done at the lower levels. A little bit of a more difficult area for them. So we put the mountains in the way so that they cannot go there until they have cleared the desert ruins and gone back to the Elder to get access to the airship. So we're giving them this world where they can go pretty much wherever they want, except for specific areas that we have blocked off and we have put an artificial barrier in front of. Artificial in that there are ways to get around it, but they have to go through the story. They have to go through the quests to get to it. I'm not sure if artificial is necessarily the right word, but that's beside the point. So like, for instance, you'll notice that what I'm going to be doing here with this volcanic region is I'm going to be completely blocking it off from the water. And the reason that I'm doing that is exactly what I said about the tower. We don't want the player to be able to just skip to this content. So we put this barrier in their way so that they can't do it. This game will appear to players to be extremely open world because they can go and do whatever they want. But as game developers, we are directing their experience and sort of making them go where we want them to go. And we want them to go here. So let's kind of throw in some patches of lava-y, kind of. Because I'm not sure there are going to be trees in this area. Oops. Because trees are sort of obviously they're a living thing, and I almost don't want this region to appear like it has life in any way. I'd almost rather it just appear like a kind of dark, evil place. So that's why I'm going to do that. And let's put something in here just to give that area some character. I don't see anything in there that I really want to do, so let's just put some more palm trees in the area. There you go. And let's put some more mountains. Yeah. So, all in all, I feel like that world map looks pretty good. We have a lot of areas out here in the water that aren't necessarily exciting, and that's something that you could sort of experiment with using the other water tiles to kind of place, barriers in the water for the boats. You could put whirlpools and icebergs and things of that nature. You can do that, and I might do that off camera. I don't think that it's totally necessarily something that I need to go through here, but you can kind of create this world any way that you want and make it look any way that you desire, and sort of you can tweak it and you can build it. You could spend hours and hours making this look exactly the way that you want and fine tweaking details and sort of doing things the way that makes sense to you and what makes you happy. But right now, this is the most that I'm going to go into, at least. So I'm going to leave it here. I might tweak it a little bit more before the next episode. You might see that. But as far as I'm concerned, this is good. This gives us a good place to start working on our characters, because now we can see the locations where people come from and sort of see the world around them, and we can see the way that might shape their own personal life experiences to make them the people that they are today. So yeah, we're going to just kind of save this and get going on to the next one. That's all for today, guys. Next video, we will be diving into character and class creation. If you want, you can click on this button here, and that will take you to the next episode. If it's not up yet, however, that will take you back to my channel, where you can subscribe and be notified when it comes up. If you want more RPG Maker related content, be sure to check out cloud9studios.net. There'll be a link in the description for that. As always, guys, like the video if you like it, dislike it if you didn't, leave a comment down below letting me know why you felt the way that you did, and ask any questions that you might have about RPG Maker, and I'll try to address them in the future as they become relevant. And as always, guys, don't forget to subscribe, and have a good one.